Okay, okay. So kind of shortly after the human days, and I lost you. I get Jeff and then I lose Joe.
Oh no.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sorry. Come back, Joe.
We were doing so good. Hey, Ducky.
Hey, sorry I'm a few minutes late there.
Actually, according to my clock, you're like right on target. So
Oh, good.
now we just need to figure out what's up with Joe, and we'll be set. So, did you know that Heaven 17 was in town?
I think I heard, and then I missed that show.
Yeah, like a week and a half ago. Joe came down and saw it.
Wow.
Okay, so Joe, do I have you?
Oh, he looks a bit frozen still.
Okay, there we go. Now there's movement there. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, this was the third.
I hesitate. Okay.
Oh,
Well, so while we're figuring out what's going on with Mr. VIZVARY, hey everybody, DJ Ducky and I hanging out today with Images in Vogue member Joe VIZVARY of Images in Vogue. Let me just say that a couple more times. Ducky, how are you?
Doing good. How about you?
Well, I'm doing all right. Hey, happy Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy early spooky day.
Yeah, well, it's not too early because actually it's probably what now? About like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon on Halloween.
Oh.
Remember? Yeah, it's that whole Back to the Future kind of thing.
Oh,
Joe,
right,
we got you.
Oh,
Was that working? Yes. When
A little concerned there.
yeah, since Ducky joined in, it seemed glitching out there for me.
Oh,
I know. Go figure. Gosh.
Well, I'll take the rap. I mean,
If you take the rap, then you have to do a rap.
So, Joe how do you pronounce your last name? I'm sorry.
VIZVARY.
VIZVARY.
Rhymes with Safari or Ferrari or
I
any of
I didn't even
Pleasure
make that
to meet you.
association.
technology that we use for some of our drum sounds. If the power went off, the memory would go blank, and you have to reload all those sounds again and reload from discs or from wherever it was. So, you know, in the 80s and probably into the early 90s, it was hard to do that live.
Right.
So it was more pleasing for the audience to have that stuff on tape where it was reliable. And then,
Right.
you know, how many two-man bands or two-people bands are there out there? You know, that everything's on tape or digital.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go for it. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, I saw Anything Box, Claude Strilio on stage a couple of years ago, and it was just him and backing tracks, and you know, playing keyboards.
Okay.
Playing a keyboard and stuff, but he had most of his stuff all all pre-recorded, and everything. It was just one-man show, and it sounded great, you know.
And some artists can do a one-man show and totally have it be a total spectacle presentation, amazing show. So, you know, some people just have that. Rusty Egan, that you and I talked with.
Yeah, Rusty.
He'll have a few other people up there with him, but for the most part, it's just him and a screen and backing tracks and whatever he's got in front of him. You know, it's like that totally amazes me. Well, so Joe, because we're talking with you today, and thank you so much for putting some time aside. What was it? There's been something I was going to ask you, something having to do with the concerts, and I don't remember. It must have been one that you saw not that long ago. You've caught OMD before, right?
Yeah, I've seen OMD. Yeah.
Okay. Early on or later on?
Both. I've
Really?
seen them quite a few times. Back in the
We didn't have to say that.
first time I saw them was here at the Commodore in 1981, the day that Images in Vogue formed. So like
No
end of
way.
April, at the end of April 1981.
Wow.
And one of our band members, Glenn Nelson, he wasn't in our band. His band E was opening for them, and they had done I think 2 or 3 dates with them across Canada, opening. So that was second album, Organization Tour.
Okay. Wow.
And then they came to Vancouver again for the third album, Architecture of Morality, and they needed an extra keyboard, so I lent them my Prophet 5 for that show.
No way.
And then I saw them. I've seen them in Toronto, like when kind of around Pacific Age. I saw them
Great
in
album.
Los in '84.
Wow.
We were recording.
Yeah, I'd say you'd seen him a few times.
Yeah. And then I've seen them twice here more recently. So I saw them this past summer, and I saw them in 2015, 2014, somewhere around there.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I've seen it. They're a band I've seen, like I don't travel that much to see bands, but
Right.
I've seen them in 3 different cities in different countries. So yay.
That's
About the maximum. I've seen a few bands in 3 cities. I don't think
And you
there's any
loaned
I've
him your
seen in 4.
and you loaned
Except
him a
maybe Skinny
synthesizer.
Puppy.
Oh my God, that would be such a weird thing to loan OMD your synthesizer.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Joe, can I show
Yeah, well, a lot of times when bands came from.
Oh.
Should I switch to my phone?
It may not be a bad idea because I really like your stories, but I want to hear the ending
Yeah, let
and the middle part.
me
Do whatever you got to
let
do.
me close this.
Okay. All right. Hi.
Oh, I can't believe I forgot.
Here we go.
Hi, it's Joe VIZVARY from Images in Vogue on the Groove Zone. Poo.
Ow!
Simmons drum.
Gracias. So we're hanging today with Joe VIZVARY of Images in Vogue. It's DJ Ducky out of Seattle, DJ D Phoenix, myself out of Olympia, and Joe is up in Vancouver area. Is that right? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. Wow, this is like a brand new you though. I mean, you switch the devices around and it's like I'm seeing you for the first time.
Yeah, I know. It's also very dark in here, so I guess the phone is better for picking up the light.
Oh, true.
Totally.
Well, you kind of had that like 70s psychedelic look going on a little while ago. So
Yeah, I was going for the VHS aesthetic.
Well, that's fantastic that you had so much that you and OMD had a good chunk of interaction in the early days back there, and you've seen him.
Yeah. Well,
times.
in the early days, in the early '80s, a lot of times when bands from England were coming on tours, especially across Canada, so a lot of times the tour would start in Toronto and they'd work their way across the prairies and end up in Vancouver. There was a lot of gear that they didn't have, or things would break down and they couldn't afford to replace it. So we lent gear to quite a few bands when they got to Vancouver. Our bass player worked at a music store, and if they didn't have what the band needed, or if they couldn't afford to rent it, we would lend them something. So we lent Simple Minds, The Cure, OMD, other bands.
Wow.
A piece of equipment that they might have needed. And Vancouver was always the last show.
right.
The tours always ended here.
No matter what.
How ironic! So you helped out all these huge bands that really really famous bands. If it wasn't for you, they'd have been hurting quite a bit there.
Yeah, although
Thanks,
those
Joe.
days, when the Cure came through in '81, they were playing shows to 40 or 50 people a lot of places. And
True, they weren't that big back then. That's
yeah. So they were just people that we knew.
You deserve more. It's I don't know. It just seems it's ironic. It's unjust. I mean, Images in Vogue should maybe be just as big as these other bands now. Images in Vogue. I went back and listened to your self-titled EP this morning. I mean, it's fantastic stuff.
Well, it was hard for us to get out of Canada. I think a lot of times we need to get into America to actually build our audience. And in those days, it was very hard to do. We only ever played in the U.S. twice back in those days.
That's what Jeff and I were just talking about. And Seattle was one of those shows, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and we were supposed to be doing the whole tour with Duran Duran. We played Calgary and Vancouver, and then Seattle, but we were sent out of the country um, because we didn't have work permits that were going to let us
What it was.
to go on.
Yeah,
Okay.
And so we had,
tape
we had
crap.
yeah, and so we were sent out because we were already on our way to go to Reno to play the next show on that tour. That was the Sing Blue Silver tour, right? 84. And then going from there to, I think, Sacramento was after that. But we had the whole West Coast of that tour to do, but we weren't allowed. We were told we had to leave, reapply for the work permits, and then they would let us in. And then when we did that, they didn't let us in. And so we're standing at the border with our truck and everything.
You
Can't
even
come
did
in.
what they said, and they wouldn't let you in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
So it was really hard. In those days, it was far more difficult in general for bands to cross the border unless you were already quite well known.
Oh,
And so that,
yeah.
and
No,
so that
I'm
was
just
kind of,
because your stuff is so great. I mean, it's so good.
well,
I mean,
thanks.
It deserves more recognition.
It needed
Well,
more
it's
exposure.
it's probably better known now than it was then, because then, I mean, I was very successful in Canada. So we did really well with Lust for Love as a single and that EP and the records after that as well. But they're only released spottily around the world. So we got released in Australia, or we got released in Sweden or France. But without a record out in the US, we would never really get a chance to play down there.
Right, right. Well, and so, yeah, had you guys been able to have continued beyond Seattle, think about how much more exposure and recognition that would have given the band. And because I noticed that when I talk to friends of mine from this area, when I talk to friends of mine from this area, they know who Images in Vogue are. And I think it's because of the fact that not only are you guys based out of Vancouver, but because anybody that was around at that time that did see the Seven and the Ragged Tiger tour knows and remembers you guys from them or from that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
well, it's one of those twists of fate. You know, you can't really. Sorry, the bell's ringing.
I thought it was an angel getting its wings, but that's a couple of holidays away.
No, this is an electronic angel.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, things could have happened quite differently for us because we did that year. We also recorded our album in Los Angeles, so we were getting ready to do that. But it was just so hard to put things together to let us do those shows. We weren't known well enough to be able to get that there's, you know, different degrees of work permits. And so, yeah, it was just hard for Canadian bands to get in there. It depended on your management's ability to do it. It depended on your record company's support. And so there's a lot of things like that all worked against each other just at that moment. Because we didn't really have an album out yet. We only had the EPs out at that point. So we hadn't made enough of a mark yet to continue. Because I think Berlin probably did the rest of the dates on that tour. I think farther down. Yeah.
Okay.
And so and then again, they were kind of at that stage as well, but they were that was just before they did the Top Gun song.
I was gonna say, yeah, give it another year for them and they'll be on the top of the charts for a long time.
They got a pretty lucky break there then, didn't they?
Yeah. But you know, so there's the flip side though. You guys could have gotten so popular that then you quote unquote sold out, you know. So
well, you know, I think part of it is we didn't sell out, although it would have been nice to sell.
I know. Well, yeah, no doubt.
You got to make a living. You got to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah. But just in general, we had an idea, and I think Vancouver bands are a lot like that. And think the same way is that we were so isolated from everything else that we thought we wanted to do things our way anyway. We didn't really want to copy anybody, but also we didn't get a chance to perform what we did. So it always seemed a little different from everyone else. And so, you know, had we sold out, well, what would selling out have been? We don't even know, because there were lots of great electronic, you know, rock pop bands that did have a lot of success. And I wouldn't say that they sold out. They just became more accessible at some point.
Right.
So I'm sure that kind of happened with us as well. You know, by the time we got to our second album, it was, you know, a different sound, you know, maybe a little less electronic, but still electronic. But electronics were changing. Everything was going digital, and the sounds were changing. So that kind of sound, you know, the way that Depeche Mode might have changed, or the way that Duran Duran changed, you know, everybody was changing by the late 80s anyway.
Yep.
But were they becoming more commercial or selling out? I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, well, that was going into that weird phase too, where it kind of like switched from new wave into like just pre-grunge, basically post punk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, were you gonna
oh,
you gonna say something?
I was well along the lines of bands changing and sounds changing, and see at the very late 80s and early 90s, a lot of my favorite bands started to kind of lose me. Like I was with Depeche Mode up to and including Violator, and then when Songs of Faith and Devotion came out, I'm going, what is this? This isn't Depeche Mode. This is, you know, you can tell that you can see the influence of the grunge bands, which I really wasn't into at all. And then the alternative music stations got taken over by grunge. This isn't really alternative, though, is it? I mean, I guess it's now, but it's not me. You know, so that like the big alternative station in Seattle, the End, KNDD, I think it was. They stopped playing all the cool new wavy stuff and started playing Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all that stuff. I'm going,
Constantly.
what's going on here? And then they would do flashbacks and play the new wave stuff, but it would be, you know, during lunch or something, you know. So I stopped listening and I pretty much stopped listening to radio in general after that, because all the 80s stuff, all the alternative stuff that I was really into, the new wavy, synthy, punky stuff, had been kind of pushed out by grunge. And then they also took over the top 40. So
Bastards.
wasn't much left on the radio for me at that point. And my favorite bands, they changed. Like The Cure, I was pretty much with up. I was pretty much with up until Wild Mood Swings, and well, I don't really like anything on this album, the Wild Mood Swings, except one song. And then the Human League, though, surprised the hell out of me, because in 1995, I think it was, they released Octopus, and they were using all analog synths, and it sounded just like 10 years earlier. 1995. I said, man, this is a great album. Thank you, Human League, for not leaving us new waver fans behind there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is parallel to that is that the changes in what was the changes in the kind of keyboards that were available. So digital technology was starting to come in, samplers, different types of synthesis. So people were getting rid of their analog stuff, because we were always trying to find the new thing, the new sound. And that's how the early 80s were. You know, we all had the 808 drum machines, and we all had the different synthesizers that were just coming out at the beginning of the 80s. And everybody was exploring that. But at the end of the 80s, the DX7s and samplers were coming out, and it made everybody sound a bit the same, and no one was coming up with anything new. So people were trying to, how else can I be different? Oh, well, I guess we'll add a guitar, or we'll add some kind of loops. Dance music was changing as well. You know, that was really, house music was starting to come up, and other types of dance music. So, you know, like in 1990, what was a synthesizer song that you like? Maybe it was like Delight or somebody like that, you know, that whole electronica thing that happened in the late 90s. That was
I was all I heard that term, I go, what is this term? Electronic.
Yeah,
we called it synth pop. What's wrong with synth pop?
Well, what's funny now is that now synth pop is the big thing again. You know,
retrowave bands. I know it's
so many bands now.
Retrowave.
You know,
Who would have ever thought?
A lot of that stuff is pretty good too. The new retro.
Oh yeah, I love a lot of those bands.
Yeah.
And I just listened to a new track today from Ladytron.
Well, I've heard of a lot of Ladytron stuff. Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So they were great back. They were great back then, but they just released a new track, and there's a new album coming. So
really,
I was listening from them for quite a few years.
I'm trying to get a word out to them, and I haven't been able to get through yet. I would love to talk with Ladytron. I totally dig them.
That would be fun.
So, and I've dug this banter. Unfortunately, on this platform, though, they only give us so long to be able to chat. So, Joe, once again, you know, doors always open to you.
Sure. Just send me a message, and I'm always happy to do it, fit it in, and I can get it in somewhere. I'm at school right now. You know, I teach keyboards and music at a high school. So that's what you heard there. That was the bell for last period.
Oh, okay.
So I'm in the music room.
I was going to say, I knew you were a teacher.
Oh,
I'm in the
wow.
guitar room, right? So,
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's fantastic.
but this is
That is
actually
cool.
there's another class going on with another teacher in my
Well,
electronic music lab.
Oh, wow. Okay.
thanks for taking the time for
Nope.
us.
No
No
doubt.
problem.
Hey, I had a question about one of your fellow Canadian cult bands that I'm.
Because it is Halloween, wink, wink. Joe, I wanted to ask, and Ducky, if I get a chance to get to you too, then awesome. Horror, is it one of your genres, kind of, or kind of not really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Movies.
it is. Like I'm a big movie fan altogether, and I teach video production, filmmaking as well. So I've got a broad scope on it. But back in the '80s, like the band Skinny Puppy, so you're very familiar with them.
Yeah, a little bit.
They're
that
slightly
whole
into horror
scene-
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was what we did. We would rent three VHSs of horror movies from Captain Video down on Georgia Street and go over to somebody's house and watch those. And part of, like when, Kevin's got his own story about the band starting, but part of it was just making noises that fitted the movies, the imagination show. So used to watch a lot of those underground Italian horror movies, Dario Argento and all that kind of stuff, and Reanimator, and just we know all that stuff. That was just our thing back in the '80s for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Not so much now, although my daughter is now getting into Halloween movies and Friday the 13th movies, so she's watching all that stuff. So kind of funny. The next generation is picking up on it.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Well, I just read a little bit. I haven't seen it yet, but Halloween Ends, supposedly bringing the franchise finally to a close after what?
Halloween never ends. Are you kidding?
Well,
no. It'll be Halloween 2120, and they'll be bringing it back. It'll be robots.
Yeah, I was going to say they'll
robots.
Yeah, I was going to say they'll find a way to bring him back.
Yeah.
So because of that, then what is one of your favorite horror movies of all time, or your couple of favorite horror movies of all time?
Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay.
That's a great one. Evil Dead, Exorcist still works for me.
So all classics.
Yeah, classics. I mean, those are the ones that I would go back to. But and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 as well. The from the
Black
later
comedy.
'80s.
Right.
That was a very black comedy. I mean, I still use lines from that movie all the time. I'm falling apart on you, babe. That's a great. We used to have a cutout of Leatherface at the entrance to our rehearsal place with the big chainsaw up like that. So when people walked into our rehearsal studio, that's what they saw first.
Oh my gosh!
I think my favorite line from that one is, "Damn it, Leatherface, you ruined my Sonny Bono wig."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's so much. And so many little things too. The subtleties, like when they chainsaw the car and the guy's head just slightly slips off. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah,
oh my God.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Now we could do a whole interview just talking about horror flicks.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
huge film fanatic of all, mostly the classics, but I love 80s horror flicks. Life Force is one of my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Life Force is just
Vampires.
That's my favorite Toby Hooper film is Life Force.
Yeah.
Sorry, Texas Chainsaw, although that one's right up there.
Yeah.
Toby Hooper did Life Force. I didn't
Toby Hooper
realize
did
that.
Life Force, yeah.
And that's the Vampires in Space, right?
These vampires,
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of space vampires, guys, I want to say thank you very much for been hanging out with Joe VIZVARY today. Joe, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Happy Halloween.
Hey, I was going to say, do you have a Halloween word to pass out to the audience today?
Sure. Happy Halloween. Stay safe. Don't eat those bad candies.
Watch out for the razor blades in the apple.
All right. Well, hey, I don't know what your day looks like, but I hope you have yourself a great one there, my friend. Thank you again.
You too. Have a good day. Thanks a lot, guys.
Ducky, as always.
Pleasure.
All right. We'll have to do this again sometime. Guys, don't go anywhere. You've been watching Convos here on the Groove Zone. We'll be back right after this. All right.